The big thing really though is you have to find something that not only makes money, but that you actually enjoy writing. The need right now for copywriters who can write compliant stuff that actually converts is probably the biggest skill that you could have right now to make a ton of money.
Hey, welcome to another episode of the Dan Lok Show. For those who have been following my work for some time, that you know my very first high income skill is copywriting, right? And a lot of people, they don't know what copywriting is. They say, oh, has it to do with like trademark and copyright with the R? No. Copywriting is a skill set. It is one of the most powerful skill sets that I know of. How to turn words into money, how to turn that into revenue. And today I'm very excited. I have a good friend of mine, Justin Goff, joining me, who I consider one of the top copywriters in the country. More than that, he has helped so many companies like Agora Financial, Golden Hippo, also helped with my team, training my copywriters to help us scale. So today we're going to talk about copywriting. We're going to talk about marketing. He and I were just going to have a lot of fun because we're good friends. So Justin, welcome to the show.
Awesome, man. Thanks for having me.
Justin, take us back a little bit. Like, how did you get into this world and copywriting?
So my story is actually very interesting. So I started in college trying to make money online, but the reason I did it was because I actually had a $1,200 gambling debt that I could not pay. So at the time I was like really big into sports betting, and I was actually pretty good at it, and I would make money every year, basically to the point where I could buy books and pay someone my rent. I got a little cocky one year and basically bet more money than I had. And I wound up having basically about $1,200 that I owed this big bookie named Gabe, who was like 6'7" with huge muscles and 280 pounds.
You don't want to mess around with Gabe.
No. So I basically had this idea. I had seen these people online who were selling their sports picks, and I was like, all right, I'm pretty good at this. Maybe I could actually just sell my picks. So I put up this ugly website, and this is like way before WordPress or ClickFunnels. So this thing was so ugly. I had no idea what I was doing. Nobody bought a damn thing from it, but I just sat there and like pecked away at it for like 6 months. Then I remember being home over winter break, and basically I was on my parents' computer. So I'm like 23, 24 at the time. And I checked my email and I saw a notification from PayPal, and I had never really used PayPal much. This is kind of before it was such a big thing. And I look in there and there was a sale for $149. And I literally looked at it and jumped up and like screamed like a 12-year-old girl. And I was like running around the room. Yes. That was the first time to me where everything just kind of became real, because up until then it was just like this kind of fantasy and this dream. Yes. But that first sale made everything real. So that kind of got me into the internet marketing game. I eventually got into copywriting probably 3 or 4 years later when I got more into the fitness space. Right. Because everybody in the fitness space was doing long form, direct response. And I remember the first time I actually looked at it, my first thought was, that is the ugliest thing ever. There's no way anybody would ever buy anything from that. Yeah. And so stupidly, I tried to do it my own way for a couple of years. Didn't work. And then I finally came to the conclusion, okay, there's a reason everyone's doing it this way. It's because it actually works. Yes. So that started me down the path of copywriting and really got me into
And during that time, how did you get good? So you knew that, okay, this is copywriting, this skill. What are some of the things that you did to get good? And who are some of the people that you've learned from?
So probably one of my first mentors and my biggest mentors by far has been Dan Kennedy. Dan's kind of been the grandfather to a lot of guys who got into online marketing. So I bought a couple of his just normal books. I studied a couple of his courses, but the biggest thing was I literally wrote every day. Whether it was an email, whether it was like a lead for a sales page, I was writing every single day. And I mean, you can study all the courses you want, but if you're not actually writing, you're never going to get any better.
So you were writing every day, practicing. The good thing is you were getting real feedback from the marketplace, right? That's the great thing about copywriting, right? You can say all you want, you can study all the courses, you send out the email, you put something online, you know immediately if something works or not, right?
Yep. I mean, the data rules all. Like you could argue back and forth between this one's better and this one's not, but it's like at the end of the day, when the data comes in, you see this one converted twice as good as this one. There's the argument is no more.
So let's say for someone starting out, let's take a young copywriter, and they say, "Hey, Justin, I want to learn this skill, and okay, I'm reading some of the books, and maybe I'm reading some of the classic books, right? Scientific Advertising, Claude Hopkins, Ogilvy on Advertising, all the fundamental books. Like, what are some of the things I could do besides like writing? Like, what else I could do to get good?"
So the number one thing that I actually see when I coach people, and this is the biggest mistake I see, is they don't actually understand who the customer is. So they have an idea. They might know it's like someone who's 40 to 60 years old and they tend to be male, and they know stuff like that, but they've never actually sat down and talked with 10 other customers. And that's probably the biggest thing, because I'll read someone's piece of copy and I'll come back to them. I'm like, I could tell this is at such a surface level that you don't actually know what the pain points are, what their frustrations are. Can you tell me who this customer is and what an average day in their life looks like? Like, what are they pissed off about when they wake up in the morning? Right. What are they, if they're driving to work for 45 minutes a day and like bitching the whole way about the traffic and how they hate going to this job? Do you know that? Do you know that they hate their boss? Like, all that kind of stuff is really actually what you need to start with before you even start writing copy.
Writing a single word. It's doing their research, right? It's almost, what I found is when I was learning the skill, if I have done my research correctly, that I could go deep, that I could almost understand their problems better than they could, then the copy is very easy, because it's all the pain points, all the aspirations, the goals, and then by the time they people, like, as you know, if you can describe the problems, their problems better than they could, they automatically assume you have the solution. It's a lot of that, right? And
I mean, you're basically like an undercover therapist. You're going in to figure out what's really making them tick, what drives them. So easy ways to do it are like trying to figure out what the big fears and frustrations are, and then really try to figure out, in an ideal world, like what's their ultimate goal. So like someone who sells stuff like you do, a lot of what's really drives those sales is people's frustration with their current situation. Yeah. Like they actually care about that a lot more than the end goal. They want to just get out of whatever situation they're currently in.
It could be a career they're not satisfied with, or maybe they don't like the job, or they're struggling with the bills, right? It's the current situations that they're in. Absolutely, 100%. What about, at the time, did you write for other people, or you were always writing for yourself?
So I freelanced for a while. There's ups and downs to being a freelance writer. What I actually recommend to a lot of copywriters nowadays is, so even if you're going to freelance, just freelance with one company and actually dive in deep with them. So actually get feedback on what you're doing. So if let's say you're writing emails for them, actually get the data on which subject lines are working, or which emails
through rate, all of that, right?
Because that's actually really the knowledge you want. Because let's say if you wrote, let's say, emails for an entire year for someone like you, and you paid attention the whole time to which emails made sales, which subject lines really work, like that's so much knowledge that you have that you can now go do whatever else you want.
Right.
So getting the feedback with the data is really the most important part.
Do you recommend like copywriters where because I know some copywriters, they say that, I could write for anything. I could write for whatever industries. I don't know if that is true. Like, I think copywriters, it takes let's say for the fitness industry, it takes a long time just to know all the language, all the psychology, understanding the marketplace. Just even fitness is this huge, right? Maybe just this type of, it's on diet, right? Or it's on supplement, or just selling to the female market, right? I mean, all of those, it takes, I think it takes years just to go deep with one. I don't know how people say, I can write for this, I can write for this, I can write for this. I don't know if that's true.
I agree 100%. And the reality is too, when you niche and you specialize, you can charge more. So if you're known as the guy who can write copy for women's hormones offers, which there's a bunch of, you're going to get paid top dollar for that. Whereas the guy who's just hired off of Upwork, who does oh yeah, I can write anything. I could write biz op, I could write supplements, I could write stuff for real estate agents. Nobody, it's the same thing when you look at like any job.
Yeah.
Cardiac surgeon and the brain surgeon make a lot more than the family doctor.
Mm-hmm. So is that the path you recommend young copywriters to say, hey, pick something, pick a niche? What niche would you recommend? Because would you recommend, I know you like the supplement niche, or is it the financial niche? Like, what are some of the most profitable niches to kind of deep dive into?
Yeah, so there's kind of two ways to go about it. One is obviously there are certain niches that there's way more profit and there's way more copy. And if you write big winners, you can make a hell of a lot more money. Mm-hmm. So the big ones are some of the ones you mentioned: health, financial, and then kind of business opportunity is a big one as well. The big thing really though is you have to find something that not only makes money, but that you actually enjoy writing. So I'll give you an example. For me, I was really attracted to health because I'm actually kind of a health nut, and health is like a hobby for me. Yeah. I have a whole cupboard full of supplements. I work out 3 or 4 times a week. I got really into the paleo diet. I'm super into health stuff.
Yes. Financial
to me is super boring. I'm like the dude who like puts money in an index fund and doesn't like, that's about the extent of my like.
So for you to like something for like, day trading, it would just like, it would drive you crazy.
Yeah. It doesn't really connect with me. Yep. So that's probably, it's kind of a 2-parter. So find the niche that you can actually make really good money. And then find one that you actually do enjoy writing, because if you're going to do this for 5 years, 10 years, like it's a pain in the ass to write a 40-page sales letter if you don't like the topic you're writing about.
And if you don't like to talk to people, because maybe you interact with the customers, the prospects, and to get some insights, right? You need to like the customers, the people. That's when you also have empathy, right? I think empathy.
You hit on a good point. Empathy is probably, and this actually surprises me because there's not a whole lot of female copywriters out there, and you would think there would be because they're much more in touch with their emotions and empathy. Yeah. And they can connect with this. It's one of the things where my copy actually has really improved in the last 2 years as I've gotten just more in touch with my own emotions. Yeah. Because if you don't know how to pick out like what fear feels like, what anger feels like, what pain feels like, it's really hard to actually see and feel that in someone else. So you brought up a great point. Having empathy for where they're at and what they're going through and what they're struggling with, it's probably one of the like hidden secrets of being a really good copywriter.
I think there's a lot of parallel, a lot of similarities in terms of, to me at least, from when copywriting versus closing on the phone. When you're closing, I don't look at copywriting as writing. I look at that. I call that it's you're closing in print. You're still closing. So when you're closing on the phone, you have the typical salesperson where, hey man, this is awesome, this is great, buy this right now, like that, right? That kind of hard push, like slimy, that kind of aggressive sales tactics. And then you have the ones who are professionals, like what we do. It's empathy, it's asking questions and understanding the needs. And I think copywriters is the same thing. Like, cause you have the old school where, you know what I mean? Like those, like, just like you have to crawl over broken glass to get this, that kind of idea, versus now it's more conversational. It's more empathy. It's understanding the needs, right? Do you see that, like, kind of that school of thought?
Compliance is the biggest issue. So
let's talk about that, because this is the reason, just to give my audience a little bit of the backstory. I'm on Justin's email, right? If you want to get, it's Justin123, right?
Justin123.com.
And when Justin started this email list, now I know there are a lot of email lists and newsletters out there. Most of them are garbage. Right? It just, you get on it, it's like a spam list. They just keep selling you stuff. So when Justin started this, because I want to ask you, this is a great marketing idea for you listening. He started his email list and he's very selective. And he would tell you up front, this email list is not for everybody. It's for very exclusive. Like if you're this type of entrepreneur, this type of marketer, this is for you. All right. Now at first I was like, okay, that's interesting, right? It's almost, he's treating it like a paid newsletter, but it's an email newsletter. You opt in and he would send you his thoughts and share what is working. and things like that. And there's no pitch. This is not like every email you get is like a pitch or something. No, it's just insights. I mean, like useful, interesting, entertaining insights. So I would, like, usually a lot of stuff I would just automatically put in the different folders. But Justin's email, I would read and I was like, oh, that's interesting. That's very, very nice. I'll forward to my team and give them. And then one day I got the email from Justin say, hey, talking about how to scale a company and compliance. Now, at the time, perfect timing, we were having issues with compliance because we were using certain types of copy, old school, hard-hitting. Let's call them hard-hitting copy, right? That, you know, and then our ads were getting flagged. Our ads were getting disapproved. We would keep trying to fix different things. This is crazy, right? Because we want to scale, but then you have all these problems. It's like this is leaky bucket. You keep putting water into it, and like there's another hole, and you plug that, and there's another hole, right? When you're running hundreds of ads, it becomes a big problem. So when I got the email from Justin, say, hey, I'm doing some special training. I'm going to it's high end, it's high ticket, and it's just on one thing: compliance copy. Now, before that, I didn't even think about that term. So I said, okay, great. So I signed up, right? I said, Justin, I wrote him a big check and say, hey, train my guys. And boom. From there, we changed our entire approach. Everything has to be compliant. Then from all the ads, we have ads getting shut down left, right, and center, right? Just so you know, I experienced this. However, they're now rarely we have any issues from the ads, from the landing page, from all of that. So this is actually very critical because you may be thinking, what's compliance? What's this like legal shit, right? And it's not about legal stuff. It's about not making crazy promises, making your claims believable and also legit so that you could run more cold traffic to it, right? So Justin, talk to us a little bit about like compliance copy. Why is it so critical and how does it work?
Yeah, so let's say even like a year ago or a few years ago, you could write one video sales letter. It could be really hard hitting, and you could scale that all over the internet. You could scale it on Facebook. You could scale it on native ads, whatever you want to do, affiliate stuff.
When we say hard hitting, meaning like, okay, you lose 10 pounds in 30 days, like, taking this thing.
Oh yeah, even more than that, you could really just dig into all their emotional pain points. And I mean, if you wanted to make someone feel really bad for being overweight or whatever you wanted to do, you could do that before and it would work. And all the networks would let you do that. Yeah. Nowadays, they care so much about the user experience. So let's use Facebook, for example.
Yes.
If somebody on Facebook clicks on an ad and goes to a sales page, Facebook does not want them feeling bad whatsoever about whatever situation they're in. So let's say even if they have, back pain, they don't want them getting a sales page that's talking about you feeling depressed because you can't get off the couch, you feeling bad because you can't go out and get out in the sun and exercise during the summer. They don't want any of that. They want all kind of like positive, feel good kind of emotions going on the sales page.
Right.
Which is actually really hard for copywriters because nobody was taught to write like this. I mean, the way I grew up, and I know the way you probably grew up learning copy, it was digging into those pain points and really showing the person how kind of bad their situation is or what they're going through and identifying with that. But the new world of compliance in 2019, you just can't do that. And as hard as it is to not do that, the reality is exactly what you said. If you can write something, though, that's compliant, who really cares if it's the best you can write? Like if it's 80% is good, but you can scale it and you can bring in 100, 200, 500 customers a day, that's really the ultimate goal. I mean, the ultimate goal is really just to acquire a bunch of customers. Getting compliance down is really the biggest change.
That's a very good point. So it's not about compliance, it's about being able to scale. So just so you understand what we're talking about. So let's say you write some hard-hitting, like knife twisting messages and copy, right? And maybe it will get you a little bit more conversion, just like as you push the envelope, but you can run it anywhere. You run on Facebook, immediately it gets shut down, or you run it a little bit, it gets shut down.
Yep.
Where all the eyeballs are, you can't go anywhere. So you've got this great piece of copy, you can't use it. But what's fascinating for me is I think consumers are more sophisticated than ever, that they're almost sick and tired of the hype. So from our tracking, what we realize is you actually don't need to do that. And in some cases, in most cases, the less hypey type copy would actually perform better. Because you're not saying, hey, you're gonna, this is a crazy example. You know, you can become a millionaire in 30 days without doing anything. Right? Yeah. You can make the craziest profits. It's illegal to do that. Versus you are saying, hey, results are not typical. Chances are this won't work for you, right? But this is I'm not saying that you will get any results. We're saying here's what's working for us. And people will be like, okay, that's much more believable. It gives you more credibility.
Yeah, and you make a really good point there. One of the signs of an amateur copywriter that you can pick out very quickly is just increasing the hype without increasing the proof behind it.
Yeah.
Because really good copywriters understand that it's better to make less claims that are more believable than it is to make bigger claims that are less believable.
That's right. And it's actually, so compliance copy, it's so critical. It doesn't matter. This is like if you're a copywriter yourself or you're looking to hire copywriters to help you scale. Do they understand compliance? Have they read the documents, right? The terms, the disclaimer, like you might be like, I just want to sell my product and services. It's not like that anymore. It really is not like that. It's a whole art and science by itself. And I think most copywriters are not equipped to do that. Especially, you and I both know, I think the more traditional, the old school copywriters, I don't know if they understand they can adapt, right? They can write long form, this and that, but like this whole social media, you and I know, we won't name names, but we know a lot of them that they cannot make that transition. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I see it every day. The need right now for copywriters who can write compliant stuff that actually converts is probably the biggest skill that you could have right now to make a ton of money. Like you mentioned earlier, like we work with some of your copywriters like Ed. We work with over 60 other companies right now, and people are just like fiending to find someone who can make an offer work on Facebook or on YouTube. Because like you said, that type of copy is a lot different. It's not the old school 40-page sales letter that kind of digs into all their pain points. It's got to be gentle. I kind of actually termed it watered down direct response because that's really what it is. It's taking the hardcore stuff and just kind of watering it down, where it's almost like a little blend of like e-commerce and a little branding and a little copy, like all thrown in together.
And then remember back then in the day, we're talking about ugly sales, right? Keep everything very ugly and things like that, where it's interesting because I came from the school of direct response. My first mentor, Alan, he was the student of Gary Halbert, right? So it doesn't get any more like in terms of copy, right? So from there, but what I learned is, because like direct response marketers and entrepreneurs, they very much look down upon, I don't do this branding bullshit, it's like waste of money, image ads. No, we do long, ugly, make the offer, like that type of approach, which it's great, right? But then what I learned, this whole new world about branding, it's not something we should ignore, right? Because at a time I had a aha. I said, okay, all the let's take the top guys in this world, direct response, like copywriters, the guys who are teaching all these things. I said, how big their companies are? Well, they are phenomenal if you're doing $1 million a year. I'm not talking like I'm talking like copywriting, right? Phenomenal. And I look at brands, the biggest companies in the world, right? You look at Coca-Cola, Apple, the ones you think they're stupid, but I'm like, these are the biggest companies in the world doing billions of dollars. You cannot say that they don't know what they're doing. So then I kind of blend the both world myself. That I have the brand, but I also have the, like you said, the watered down direct response. I kind of combine the two. That's my approach today, at least.
Yeah, and I mean that's really smart because that's where things are not even headed. That's where things are right now. Yeah. The biggest companies that I work with right now that are doing 50 million, 100 million, even 400 million a year, have embraced the kind of blend of direct response branding. Because one of the big things, especially from Facebook, they don't want people clicking over and seeing a ugly, long, black and white, red headline sales page.
Yellow highlight, underline.
Yeah, they want something that's a little prettier. They want some like brand to it. It's one of the reasons, like if you look at Beachbody, who does P90X, they can run all kinds of stuff on Facebook that direct response, hardcore direct response people can't run. And Beachbody is a direct response company, but they also have built a legit brand with it to the point where the guy who's 19 years old, who's approving your ad on Facebook, knows who the hell Beachbody is. So he gives them a lot more leadway.
Yeah, that makes sense. What if someone, let's say they have the skill, they've got some skills now. What would you recommend for them to get the first client? For anyone that's like a service provider, it doesn't have to be a copywriter, to get the first client. And what's the best structure in terms of charging for copywriting?
Yeah, so this is actually a great example because it worked on me. So when I was running my supplement company a couple of years, I had this kid email me out of nowhere. So I always got emails all the time from copywriters who were like, hey, will you hire me to do this? And it's like, hey, I don't know you. I have no idea. I'm not going to hire you. Yeah. One kid actually went the complete opposite direction. Instead of asking for something, he knew one of our offers. It was called Patriot Power Greens. It was a supplement. Kicking ass. We were doing like $23 million a year. He sent over an email to me with a new lead for it that he had already written. It was basically like 3 pages long. He's like, hey, Justin, I've been studying Patriot Power Greens. I know you've been running it for a while. I know that it might be fatiguing. So he's like, here's a new lead I wrote for you. He's like, I'm not asking anything for it. He's like, if you want to test it, that'd be great. I'd love to see how it does. And I read that and I was like, that is absolutely brilliant.
Yes. That's what I did.
He took the first step and took his own time and effort and then sent that to me. And I was like, as soon as I saw it, I was like, when I get 50 different people asking me for something and then he just goes out of his way to do something for me, it stood out like a needle in a haystack or whatever the phrase is.
Yes.
But it stood out so quick. We actually hired him and tested a couple of things, and we hired him for a couple other emails. And I was like, yeah, as soon as he did that, I was like, that was just an absolutely brilliant strategy. I
agree. It goes back to adding value before you ask anything in return. Like it's think about it. Anyone like Justin, anyone that has a successful business, we get approached all the time, right? People want something from us, and you say, "Oh, hire me, do this." If we hire someone, first of all, we are busy. We don't know if they're good, and then all the risk is on our shoulders. But if you reverse it and say, "Hey, it's okay. I've already done something for you. Just take a look," right? And then say, "Okay." It's like even if the copy, the lead that the kid wrote, maybe it's not the best, but you're like, okay, you like the initiative. Then maybe you give him a little bit of training and a little bit of guidance. He could produce some pretty good stuff. That's actually how I got my first client. That's actually how I got J. Conrad Levinson from Guerrilla Marketing. Exactly like that. I saw his marketing association at the time, the membership. I rewrote it. I sent it to him. He used it, triple his conversion. Now I have a client, right? And because of J. Levinson, he has a lot of access to a lot of business owners, and that's how I built my career and kind of get my foot in the door. That's exactly what I did.
Yep. I mean, it's a brilliant idea. And what you touched on with getting the first client is the hardest.
Yep.
Like it is by far the hardest, but once you get that client, the referrals are super easy.
Assuming you're good.
Assuming you have some idea.
You suck, then it doesn't apply. Assuming you're good.
Assuming you have some idea what you're doing. But if you're terrible, then literally, I actually tell young guys this all the time. I'm like, if you're terrible, go find somebody who's doing what you're doing and offer to work for free.
Yes.
There is no better education. Like offer anything. Be like, I will do your laundry. I will cut your lawn. I will do whatever you want. Because if you could mentor under someone like me or you for a year, you can't even put a price tag on that.
Yeah, 100%. And then what would you recommend in terms of copywriters? I have a few thoughts, but I would love to hear your thoughts. Some copywriters, they maybe on certain freelance site, they charge, per word. Some would charge per page. Some would charge per hour. I've even seen per hour. Or per project. Like, what's your recommendation for someone, a young guy, like I want to make a good living doing this?
Yeah. So I'm actually a big fan of doing a lot of pay for performance models with copywriters.
Okay.
So I do that when I do some freelance copywriting, and I actually do this now where I'll go in and somebody's got an offer and let's say it's not working as well as they want, and I'll go in and work on their upsells for them. And instead of charging them upfront a bunch of money, I say, how about if I boost your average order value by this amount, you pay me this much. So basically I usually tie it to like a dollar figure. I'm like, for every dollar I boost it, you pay me this much. And most people are like, sure, like, yeah, if you give me the results, like, yeah, I'm glad to pay for results.
What would be? Can you give me an example of that? Like, how much would that be? Let's say someone give me an example.
Yep. So I'll give you an actual example. So Mike Geary, who's a very famous internet marketer, has crushed it for like 10 years in the fitness niche.
Yeah.
I'm good friends with him. And a couple of years ago, one of their products, it used to work on Facebook, and then basically the average order value dropped so much that they couldn't make it work anymore without losing money on every customer.
Okay.
So Mike came to me and asked me if I could fix it. I said, sure. This is a free plus shipping offer. So it was maybe like $17 average order value.
Okay.
They only needed to get about $2 more in average order value to make it work. So I said, all right, Mike, for every dollar I boost your average order value, you pay me $20,000. And Mike's like, okay, that works. I got him about a $2.60 boost in average order value. So Mike wound up paying me, I think it was like $52,000 for an upsell rewrite, which took me about a day and a half. The amount of time was nothing. But yeah, that's just the straight performance deal. No upfront money. Obviously, if I write and it doesn't work, I don't get anything. But
you were confident, you know Mike, you know his business. You could see a bunch of things he could tweak, and chances are it would work, right? So that's coming from your confidence in your abilities.
Yeah, I by taking a look at what he was doing, I knew I could beat it. So, but when you have a situation like that where you know you could win, it's kind of dumb not to get a piece of the action.
Okay. And what about for like someone doesn't have maybe your experience? It's like, I think I've been doing it for a year or so and still kind of still green. How should I charge my client?
So you mentioned before charging by the word, by the hour. I'm 100% against all of that.
Yes.
Definitely charge by the product. Yeah. And here's actually a huge secret.
Yeah.
The who you are charging matters way more than what you're charging. So if you're working with someone like Agora Financial is not even going to bat their eyes if you quote them like $10,000 for something. Like it's like a rounding error for them. It doesn't even register. But if you're trying to do, let's say, work for like a local laundromat, if you said $10,000, the guy would probably crap his pants. He'd be like, what the hell are you talking about? $10,000. That's insane. Yeah. So the who you're actually going to really matters more than anything. But yeah, I'm a huge fan of start with just like a per project fee. So let's say I'm going to write 5 emails for you and we'll do them at
X amount of dollars.
Yeah, we'll do them at $200 an email. Really your biggest thing in your first kind of while you're learning is just to get as much data and knowledge as possible, because that's really what propels everything. Because like if you really know email or if you really know upsells, then you can take all that data and go find other clients and be like, okay, then you can start working out those royalty and performance deals.
Right. And I think back then we know that we're talking direct mail days, that my mentor Alan, he would do these royalty deals where he would charge X amount of dollars upfront, right, to create the campaign. There was multiple kind of direct mail campaign, multi-sequence, and then he would then say, okay, he would take a small percentage of the sales generated from the letters. And at the time, he was very, very good on selling like high ticket training and boot camps. That's what he's very good at. So it could be a $3,000, $5,000 training event, and he would help write those letters. And as long as the letter's performing, then the client would keep sending the letters and he would get paid. But of course, later on, things change and certain platforms, certain media no longer performs. But he got that royalties for a period of time, right? That was the old model. Now, I guess it's also maybe a little bit harder. I don't know, because there are more factors now. Back then, it's like just right direct mail, you send it out. Now it's like there are more things that contribute a campaign works or not, right? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, there definitely are a lot more, because it used to be, you're right, your 40-page direct mail letter, and that was it.
Yeah.
Nowadays, you have to do the sales page, the checkout page, the upsells. The upsells really are kind of what make or break most offers and whether or not they can work on cold traffic. You have mobile versions. You have what we talked about before, like a more compliant version versus a more aggressive version. So there's just way more nowadays. But it still all comes back to every single company. Their biggest thing right now is trying to find an offer that works on cold traffic so that they can acquire customers steadily every single day.
Yeah.
So if you can write anything that works on cold traffic, whether that's maybe the email that sets it up or whether that's the actual sales page that actually converts,
yes,
people are willing to pay very, very good money for that.
And what do you think are the key elements to making cold traffic work? Because that's something you've helped us kind of to crack the code a bit as well. So what are some of the key elements, like for an entrepreneur watching this?
Yeah, so I could give you specifics, but I would say one of the biggest things is that most companies actually don't put their focus on customer acquisition and cold traffic. And that's actually where they run into problems. So I'll give you an example. When my supplement, Patriot Power Greens, took off in like 2016 or so.
From 0 to 23 million in 3 years. I know that. So that's an incredible story.
Yeah. So when we were at like $1 million a year, we brought in maybe like 20,000 customers that year, but we were actually focusing on a lot of stuff like on the back end, and we were trying to get our emails dialed in and all this.
Right.
And I finally got the offer dialed in on the front end, and it went from like 50 sales a day to like 750 sales a day, just like clockwork every single day. And these were like really good buyers who were spending like $200 on an average order value with us. So that's like a great buyer to bring in.
Yeah.
And when we started bringing in all those customers, I had this kind of revelation where I was like, when the front end offer is working and just bringing in customers all the time, everything on the back end just works so easy. I mean, it doesn't take that smart of marketers to make stuff work on the back end.
You already acquired customers at a break even, right? So then anything afterwards is all gravy, right?
Yeah, and you actually bring up an important point there, because most people actually try to make money on that initial customer. And the reality is, if you can get that customer for break even, you can be super, super rich. Because if I just handed you today an email list that had 100,000 buyers on it, who just kind of bought in the last, let's say, a couple months, I mean, you could make $2, $3, $4 million profit literally off of that email list, selling them more products.
Yeah. And also I think for people to understand is the front end offer, there are many different types. It could be some people might do the free plus shipping, depends on what you sell, right? It could be a low ticket thing, right? It could be, I guess, $97, even $199, right? Something like that. Now you can afford to spend, and maybe then you have a couple upsells. So it's not as because sometimes I hear entrepreneurs say, "Oh, Facebook doesn't work." I'm sure you hear this a lot. Oh, Facebook doesn't work. I said, okay, and I look at the offers, like just you laugh at this. they run the ad and they just try to sell whatever they sell on that checkout page with no offer, like $999. Like I wonder why it doesn't work. It's like they're not doing it properly.
Right. I mean, there's really, so I've kind of boiled it down. There's 4 components that need to be there for the offer to work on cold traffic.
Nice.
One is actually the offer itself.
Yeah.
And I'll explain. A lot of people actually put out offers, and this is actually a huge issue I have in my coaching programs. People bring me offers that they've worked for a long time on. So the copy, the upsells, everything's done. But I look at the offer and I'm like, the actual offer is just not very appealing. So I'll give you one of the examples. So I have a guy in my program who made a really popular offer. It was kind of like a heart watch monitor.
Okay.
And it crushed. It did really, really well. And then he puts out his next offer and he's like, we're going to do another free plus shipping offer, this time with like a normal scale that you like stand on.
Yeah.
I was trying to explain to him, I'm like, nobody wants a scale. Like the heart monitor is something like, it's a Fitbit. It's like this cool watch. It tracks all their health stuff. People actually want that. It's really appealing.
Cool. It's a cool, unique thing, right?
Yeah, it has a lot of appeal to it, especially when you're selling it as a free offer for like $10 and then they're getting this huge discount. They actually want it. I'm like, people begrudgingly buy scales. Like people don't get all happy and excited when they see the scale.
Yeah.
So that's kind of part one, is like actually having
Irresistible, compelling offer. Yeah.
having a real offer that people want. Part two would be the ads. So if we're talking Facebook ads, the actual ads that they click on Facebook. And as you guys have seen too, I know this from working with Ed, the difference between a good ad and a really good ad can sometimes be like 5 to 10x. I mean, it's completely different. Yeah. And really the big thing with ads is honestly just testing. Because like you have ideas of like angles that work, and I have ideas of what to do, but the more I've done this, the more I've realized you just got to throw 100 things at the wall and see what's.
It'll be clear what the winner is. Like it's like a professional. If anyone who tells you, "Oh yeah, I know exactly what will work," no, like if we can get it 20% accurate, like I think we're good, right? Yeah. You never know. You just don't know, right? So ads, got it. So offer ads, and then.
So yeah, we have offer ads, and then the third one is obviously the sales page.
Yeah.
I mean that could be a whole 3-day course, but
yes,
the biggest thing with that is really, like I said, right now is making it compliant, and really going back to what I said before, which is truly understanding what that customer wants,
right?
What their frustrations are, what their pain points are,
right?
And then really getting kind of the price point correct. That's a big thing that a lot of people don't really test enough. And you mentioned that with sometimes you do lower ticket ones, sometimes you do higher ticket. But even within there, like the difference between a $9 offer or a 17 or a 27, like the difference in how that works out in terms of you being able to make that offer convert can be drastically different.
Yeah. And like you said, it could be, I couldn't make it break even at 49, but it may be if I can make it break even at 99, in terms of targeting the audience and things that now you've got a co-offer that works, right? And I think also when it comes to scale, I notice sometimes entrepreneurs and marketers where they have an offer that works for, let's say, warm traffic, right? The existing customer base or people who know them or through JV, right? That's good. It works. The minute they take it outside of that, it just crash and burn. They couldn't get out. They couldn't move beyond. And I see this a lot, right? You and I have friends like they're good at selling to their existing people, maybe some JVs, but that's it.
Yep.
They can appeal to the masses, in other words. I think what made us grow is because we are able to crack that code, right? In terms of social media, ads, content, that we are talking to the masses, people who don't know us, who don't know anything, we haven't developed a relationship yet we're able to start that conversation, right? So yeah, sales page. What's the last one?
Yeah, and so the last one would be the upsells. And to me, even the big companies I work with that are doing 200, 300 million a year, this is actually where they leave the most money on the table, because they either don't have the right products in the upsells, they don't have the right price on the upsells, it's not formatted correctly. There's all kinds of cool things you can do with upsells in terms of the actual like formatting and video and how you want to do that. But this is as compliance gets harder, upsells become even more important because you're not going to convert as well on the front end. So you got to make that up some way by really increasing the average order value of your buyers. And the way to do that is with really good upsells.
Yes. So just for our audience who's not made to understand, who's not marketers, like what is an upsell? Like how does it work? What are we referring to?
Yeah. So an easy example would be somebody buys your book on how to lose weight.
Right.
And then the first upsell
for, let's say, I don't know, $10 or even
shipping. Let's say it's a $10 book. Then the first upsell, we sell them, let's say meal recipes or a diet plan or supplements.
Okay. Something
like that furthers, that helps them get to the goal they want, which is to lose weight. And usually you want to do it in a way that it makes it easier for them. So like supplements is kind of like a done for you version of losing weight, which is what people want.
So then say a $10 purchase up front, the first step, then they say, hey, before you go, here's something else that I think would help complements what you just bought, right? That could be, I don't know, $50, $60, right? And there so what you're saying, we can take it. If they say yes to that, there might be another upsell. Or if they say no to that, then it could be a downsell. Like a more sophisticated marketers, they would do that, right? And I've seen some that's go a little bit crazy. Like you have so many upsells that's like, how many things I bought? Like it's so crazy. What's a good number? Like how many steps are we talking? Are we talking like 3 or like 5? When are we overdoing it?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of limiting at 3. And actually most of the stuff I've put out has 2.
2, yeah.
So 2 main upsells and then some downsells on those. I think if you run them through 7 upsells, like you get a customer who's pretty pissed off and it's not a great experience. And that kind of ties back to making sure your upsells are really congruent with what they bought on the front end. So I'll give you an example. One of my old clients sold survival food for the prepper niche, which is actually a really huge niche. People kind of preparing for the end of the world.
Yes.
They would buy like a 3-day bundle of food. That was kind of like a free trial offer. You pay like $10, you get this 3-day bundle of food.
Okay.
Their first upsell, instead of like trying to sell them something else, they literally just sold them more of that. So you got a 3-day one. They're like, now here's the 3-month one. So you spend $10 on the 3-day one. Now we want to offer you the 3-month one for like $500.
Yes.
And then to me, I was kind of surprised because I was like, that's a huge jump in price from $10 to $500.
Yeah.
But it's so congruent with what they just bought.
Yes.
You get a lot of people that take it.
Yeah, it's interesting because then it's going back to offer them some more of what they just bought, right? Yep. It's like I've seen even supplement offers that you buy a bottle of supplement, maybe it's like a trial, right? And then from there, they upsell you like a 3-bottle pack. And then you say yes, they offer you like a 10-bottle pack. You're like, what the hell is this? But I'm trying to there's no way, like it's almost like it doesn't make sense, but actually it kind of makes sense too, right?
Yeah, it does. So to me, when I first heard about this, it did not make sense to me either, especially with the supplements. I'm like, well, if you just bought 5 of them, why would you want to buy 5 more?
Yeah. But
the reality is like the person who's most likely to buy 5 more is the guy who just bought 5 of them.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. What about, okay, let's say they've done all that, right? The ad, the offer, the landing pages, the upsell. Now they're acquiring customers through cold traffic at break even. What do you think, like, what's the best way to now go back to them and offer more products? Like, are you still a very big believer in emails? Are we doing retargeting ads? Like, what do you advise your clients to do?
So the biggest thing I've realized with this is that it really depends on what offer they come in on the front end. So let's say you were selling your people a course on how to make money with YouTube. Mm-hmm. If your back end stuff that you're pitching to them is about how to make money on Twitter or how to run Facebook ads, it's not going to convert anywhere near as well as if you sold them more stuff on YouTube. Mm-hmm. This is a very simple idea, but a lot of people get it wrong. And actually, I had a real light bulb moment with this once because we were selling a bunch of anti-aging supplements. And then from our perspective, we were like, okay, let's build out the whole thing. So we want to do a joint pain, we want to do a heart one, we want to do all this stuff. And we kind of realized on the back end that those didn't work as well. And we went back and I started thinking, and this woman, Jenny Thompson, who we consulted with, she's like, you have an entire list of people who buy anti-aging supplements. Sell them more anti-aging supplements. And so obvious to me now, but at the time I was like, that was absolutely brilliant.
So what you're saying is don't scale like horizontally. You want to scale vertically. Don't offer them. So although that's your demographic, naturally you would think, okay, they would probably want, like I said, anti-aging, joint pain, and they probably have all these things versus what they just bought. Let's give them bigger, more of those things, right? What they've just bought.
Yeah. So I'll give you a good example here. So I have a client who does neuropathy stuff. So they do neuropathies, I don't know the exact term of it, but it's stuff that happens with it's a disease with your foot and you get all these tinglies and stuff. And they have these creams that they sell that work really well. They've been trying to sell supplements on the back end to these buyers. Like they have an energy supplement, they have an anti-aging supplement. And they kept coming to me in my coaching group and they're like, they're not working. And I was like, I basically went to them. I was like, have you ever sold anything that is non-neuropathy based to your customers on the back end that has actually worked? And he thought about it for a couple of minutes. He's like, actually, no, we haven't. I was like, so why do you keep trying to do it?
Yeah.
That for him was a light bulb moment. And I was like, you should be scaling much more vertically. And basically you just need to become a neuropathy company because you got 150,000 customers that's what they're into. Like that's all they really care about. They don't care about the other stuff.
Right. I know it sounds so simple, but it's these are the insights from years in the trenches, right? You learn about this really. So yeah, so it goes back to so emails. What's the best way to go back to remarket our existing customers?
Yeah, so I'm a huge fan of email. And if anybody's like listening to this who's like 19, you might think I'm an old fogey for talking about email like that. But
just an email is dead. No one uses email anymore.
Email still drives the majority of sales for almost every client I work with.
Yeah.
And I don't see that going away anytime soon.
Yes.
And the cool thing is you can really combine email and social. I think you and Cardone and a couple of those guys are probably the best at this, because really you're building up all that social proof. You're building up all that goodwill with the content you guys create.
Yeah.
And then you still sell through email, but you also sell through social. So, I mean, it's kind of a mix of the two. But yeah, I'm a huge fan of email. And you kind of touched on the way I look at email is a little more of a long game. So like people on my email list, that it's actually a private email list. You can't just opt into it. I intentionally keep it small. There's only like 900 people on it, and they're all pretty high level people.
Yes.
That to me is a long game where I'm building the relationship with them. I do make offers once in a while. But when I make offers, they do really damn well, because that kind of bond, that connection, all of that has already been built up.
And I think also you understand, because you keep the list very small and you know exactly who is on it, then when you make an offer, you know you're not gonna. It's very particular. That solves exactly when I got your offer on compliance copy. I mean, if you send this offer to someone who's a beginner or someone who's thinking of starting a business, they're like, huh, what? Like it doesn't talk to them. It doesn't connect. But for someone who's high level, who knows they need to scale or they have challenges scaling, they're like, okay, that's like, it's very, very precise, right?
That goes back to truly knowing your customer, what I talked about.
Yeah.
I know that was the best offer because I work with clients every single day. I see this day after day that this is the biggest issue they have. So it's very obvious to me that that's what I should sell to people.
One last question. Where do you see the copywriting, where do you see that it's going in the next, like say now with social, with branding, with marketing, like copywriting and marketing, where do you see, let's say in the next 3 years?
Yeah, so it's becoming more and more needed because there's so many different forms of copywriting now. Like you could be the person who's writing the video ads for Facebook, or you could be the person who's writing the YouTube ads. So everything has really transitioned to a lot more video. That's no secret. Yeah. But people still need to write stuff for that. Like there still needs to be scripts. I mean, unless you're just an amazing speaker who can just whip it off the top of your head, there needs to be scripts written. There needs to be all that written. Yeah. I really see it definitely going more in the specialization route, where you're either really good at YouTube stuff, or you're really good at Facebook stuff,
or Instagram,
or you're the email guy. And I really recommend doing that. I mean, a couple of the guys, a good story. One of the guys I trained for email, I trained him for about 4 months, taught him how to write emails. He does daily emails. He got a gig working with Natural Health Sherpa, who does really well in the health space. And within about 6 months, not only was he writing all their emails, now he manages the entire email program of theirs, which pumps out, like, last I know, like probably about $6 million a year. And this is literally a guy who was folding shirts at Abercrombie and Fitch before this. And he learned all that stuff about email.
Yes.
Now to the point where I'm the one who taught him, and he probably knows more about email than I do.
Because he's in it, doing it every day and looking at data and getting feedback, right? And the great thing about this is, I mean, at a time, I think copywriting is something that it's not difficult to learn. It's very difficult to master, but it's not difficult to learn, like have a basic understanding, a human psychology, behavior, and you can kind of get the ball rolling, right? And then, so do you see this? It's like almost like, okay, I am the email copywriter for the financial investment sector, right? I am the video sales letter for supplement, copywriter. Is that you can see that's where that's going, right?
Yeah, and I would highly recommend too for like newer people to start out small. So like one of the reasons I started out the people I trained with email is because email is a pretty condensed form of direct response as a whole.
So emails are good. Yeah.
Yeah, the same with like writing Facebook ads, or if you're writing Google PPC ads, like you could learn a ton literally just doing those over and over and over again and watching the data and see what works and what doesn't work. And then you can expand onto more like the idea that you're just going to jump right in and write a 50-page sales letter and it's going to be a winner for Agora is that's a pipe dream.
Maybe after 10 years.
Yeah.
That makes sense. So a shorter form, kind of get the feet wet a bit, right? Learn and look at the ads, because it's also, I think, training you to, because this is a daily email or a client needs like 20, 30 Facebook ads, volume, quantity, right? You learn how to write fast. You learn how to crank out stuff under pressure. I think that's also very good practice for a lot of people, right?
Yeah, it's all about the reps. So you're just cranking out reps every single day. It's the same thing as if you were learning how to play basketball and you were shooting foul shots and dribbling for 2 hours a day. The more you do, the better you're going to get. And then if you're getting feedback along the way with that, that's when you can really take the growth from like kind of going up to like that huge hockey stick growth where you get really, really good really quick.
I almost see that, like, say to me, like closing, I think it's a dying art. It's like, it is, I think copywriting is the same thing. Just because fewer people are trained. I mean, a lot of the old timers, unfortunately, there's some are passing away, right? The new generation, because of you and I know, the shorter attention span, that most are not willing to invest the time, say, I'm going to invest 3 years in getting good at this skill. So fewer people are good at it, but there's this huge demand. Like, just like most people are not comfortable talking to people on the phone because we don't talk to people on the phone anymore. We're text, right? So it's I think it's a very, very interesting, but that's what makes it more valuable, right? It's like fewer and fewer people are knowing how to, a lot of people are jumping into computer science and programming and AI and all of that. That's all great. That's huge industry. But at the end of the day, my personal belief is, all those is good. Someone needs to get that product sold.
Yep.
Someone needs to communicate that offer, that product, whatever it is, and say, hey, communicate that ticket, the value, so someone would buy it. Machine can't do that.
Yeah, I always say if you can help other businesses get customers, you are going to never have to really worry about money ever. Yep. Because businesses are always going to need customers, whether that's products, whether that's info products, whether that's literally your dentist, like they need patients.
Yes.
All this stuff is transferable to everything. So like you become a good copywriter, you could work with, like I said, you could work with a dentist, you could work with someone like you, and the skills are actually the exact same.
It's very, very true. And that's to me, that's the best way to recession proof your income, because when times are good, businesses need customers. When times are bad, they need more customers. Like it's always a place, right? It's always this. We're not talking about Uber, right? That you'll be replaced by like automatic cars. We're talking about, hey, a skill set that requires innovation, creativity, thinking. I think that's why I'm such a big proponent. People ask me about it. I said high income skills. Just pick a high income skill. Pick something that would add value to companies. Like you're always, you never starve. I mean, you always make very good living, period. Doesn't matter what happens, economy, people get downsized, or it doesn't matter, right?
Yep, I 100% agree with you on that. I remember the first time I heard you say that, because I always have people come to me asking about starting a business.
Yeah.
They don't have any skills yet.
Why?
And I'm like, what? You need to either know how to write copy to sell. I was like, or you need to know how to run traffic so you can get customers. I was like, you need to know how to do something that gets you customers before you start a business.
Yeah.
Like, don't just try to start a business because it sure as hell ain't gonna go well.
Yes. And if you can't even do that for other people while you're making a living, chances are you can't do that for yourself, right?
Yes.
100%. What's the best way for my audience if you want to find out a little bit more about what you do? I know you have the email list. Like, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, so I have my email list. It's a private email list. I write a daily email every single day about kind of what's working for me. I'm actually very open about stuff I'm struggling with or stuff that's going on in my life. But yeah, if you want to get on that, I actually made a special URL for it. It's just justin123.com. If you go there, there's a really ugly application that you have to fill out to get on it.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can apply for it. And if you make the cut, you'll get to start getting emails within like a day or two.
I think just like being on, if you are accepted, just being on the list, you'll learn a lot. Just I collect all Justin's emails. I have like a Justin Goff folder. Like I just put it in there, right? Or because that's how you learn, right? You look at other people's work and you say, because the last thing you want is when you need an idea, is like you're looking at a blank piece of paper or a blank screen versus, hey, I think I saw an email or I saw an ad a year ago, 6 months ago, that has a pretty good angle. You get inspiration and ideas from that, right? That's like, that to me, it's a very, very valuable thing. And you don't get that unless you see a lot of stuff, right?
Yep, I agree. So I have a huge swipe file at my house, literally in my office, that's like literally about stacked as high as I am. That's just
I got it.
Old copy in newspapers. I got the same thing with emails. It's just idea generation.
Love it. So Justin123.com, buddy, thank you so much. Appreciate it. It's awesome copywriting, like talking about stuff. If I'm in town, going to your city, you're in town, let's connect.
Let's do it, man. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Buddy. Thank you. Take care.